As the scale of video games and the complexity of making them continue to rise as budgets inflate and whatnot, a lot of major publishers are struggling to release a consistent cadence of AAA games. Once upon a time, I felt like we would see just many more games from a publisher like Sony than we are seeing now. 2024, I feel like, has been a relatively lean year for PlayStation when it comes to brand new releases. We have seen Helldivers 2 come out, and that was their biggest success this year. But then beyond that, in terms of new games, not a whole lot there. A lot of this stuff is like re-releases on PC. We did see like Stellar Blade and Rise of Ronin, but those are third-party games that were published exclusively on PlayStation. In terms of that first-party support, there was Concord, but we all know what happened there. One of the biggest flops, if not the biggest AAA flop in video game history. Astrobot was a nice, pleasant release, though, with critical acclaim across the board. It sold like 1.5 million units in 2 months, which isn't like a runaway success, but it was overall like it's a game that made its money back and then some, and hopefully it's a franchise that can continue to grow. And so what comes next after that? Well, there's this title that is a reimagining of Guerrilla's Horizon, but in Lego form. So this right here is Lego Horizon Adventures, which launched not too long ago on November 14th, 2024. I'll be honest with you, I'm surprised at how poorly this game did. While I knew that this wouldn't be like a huge mass market appeal kind of a thing, I figured it'd do better than Concord. Recall that Concord launched to an all-time peak concurrent player number of 697 players, and it was just such an abysmal performance that Sony shut down the game very shortly after launch, and they recently announced that they'd be shutting down the studio as a whole and not be bringing back Concord, despite their initial statement on shutting down the game, saying that they were exploring other options. It seemed as though ultimately those other options didn't pan out, and they decided to terminate the entire IP and just cut this short before it incurred further losses. To see a game perform worse than Concord is kind of shocking, at least on Steam. This right here is what numbers look like for Horizon Adventures, with an all-time peak of only 602 players. And already those numbers have dipped significantly to mid-double digits. Now, unlike Concord, Lego Horizon Adventures isn't a live service, and it was nowhere near as expensive to make as Concord. So financially speaking, this is not as big of a loss, but it is a financial loss regardless. These numbers definitely indicate a general lack of interest. While we don't know what PlayStation numbers look like, I've tried to look at, like top charts of games played in the last, month or weeks or whatever, and Lego Horizon Adventures just doesn't show up anywhere in those top charts, suggesting that even on PlayStation, not a whole lot of people were interested in buying this game. While there are aspects to this game that are appealing, especially with how vibrant and colorful everything is and how lighthearted they've kind of turned everything to make it appeal to a wider audience and whatnot, ultimately, it's a game that falls short in many areas. Now, you know what else is colorful? Products from the sponsor of today's video, Yeelight, makers of awesome smart lighting products to decorate and transform your space. What I've got for you here is a really creative lighting product called the Yeelight Curtain Lights. These are pretty straightforward to set up and hang, with 3 mounting options to choose from, and once you do so, these strings of light essentially create a 19 by 25 LED matrix to form a screen for your curtains, with each LED acting like individual pixels, allowing you to light them up with cool images, animations, patterns, and effects. The lights are controlled through the easy-to-use Yeelight mobile app, from which you're able to pick out a wide variety of presets. You can set the mood with neat ambience like a fireplace effect, or maybe you're in the mood for some love, or maybe you're celebrating a special occasion like a birthday or holidays like Halloween and Christmas, or perhaps you just want to display something playful. You can also make your own custom artwork and effects that you can share with the Yeelight community and download other users' creations as well. The curtain lights can even be set in a mode where they'll react to music playing on nearby speakers or to music playing on a smart device. It's It's honestly a really neat way to cosmetically express yourself and personalize your interior and exterior surroundings. And you can get your Yeelight curtain lights by using my link in the description and comment section below. Now, I want to emphasize that LEGO games do sell well if done right. If you look at how well the Skywalker saga of LEGO Star Wars performed, you'll see all-time peak concurrent player numbers of 82,517 players on Steam, and there's still hundreds of players playing right now. The number of players that are checking this game out years after this game's launch exceeds the numbers that LEGO Horizon Adventure saw in its entire run. Again, the all-time peak for this game was 602 players, and when it comes to LEGO Star Wars, 607 players are playing right now. So what exactly went wrong with LEGO Horizon Adventures? LEGO Horizon Adventures as a game just falls short in a number of areas. A lot of people were disappointed with how this game, while it looks great and there's an appeal to seeing Horizon in this form, it's really charming in a lot of ways, but the combat just felt a little too simplistic. The runtime of this game is just 6 hours, and within that time frame, there's just not a whole lot of things that this game does that are inspired. Like, even for a kid's game, the game design and the level design is just a bit too simplistic. And when a game can feel repetitive within its shorter 6-hour runtime, like, that is a problem. At least the Skywalker saga was very expansive in its scope, obviously had a lot of material to draw on as far as source material is concerned, covering the entire Skywalker saga from episode 1 all the way to 9. But it just feels like a much more epic adventure. It's an epicness that doesn't translate to LEGO Horizon Adventures for some reason, despite the fact that the Horizon games are pretty epic. The two that have come out so far, both of them are extremely expansive. And while LEGO Horizon Adventures was always going to be a simplified version of Horizon, they simplified it so much that it kind of loses what made Horizon special. And so the end result is sort of a mixed reception on Steam. From the few reviews that this game got, 144 players reviewed this game, which is minuscule. We're sitting at a 56% user review score. And then if you go to Metacritic and check out what critics think of the game, we've got a mixed or average score of 71% from 94 critic reviews, and from user reviews, we are looking at a score of 5.5. There's a general agreement that it's not like this game is awful in any way, shape, or form. It just doesn't stand out in any way, and even for the more family-friendly type of experience it's going for, they made it a bit too simple, a bit too shallow. You have to give kids a bit more credit than this game does. Kids are smart, and even if you make a game for kids, you can still implement levels of complexities that respect that intelligence. And LEGO Horizon Adventures, it's almost too mind-numbing to the point where it's kind of a bit boring despite some of the charming elements that it has to offer. I myself played like a preview build of this during Summer Game Fest. It had all of those iconic LEGO game elements where they added a certain level of humor, and they took characters and made them kind of silly, and they took moments and made them really silly. And, for the first few minutes, I'm like, okay, I'm like having a good time. But as more time went on, it was just kind of droll to continue doing kind of very repetitive things and very simple things that didn't really engage me enough to make me deem this a game that I felt particularly interested in. Not to mention that so much of Horizon is about, characters and story and world building, and a lot of that stuff just gets really reduced in LEGO Horizon Adventure. So again, it takes the Horizon elements and dilutes them to a point where it just loses the source material's specialness. And it's also worth noting just what a weird pairing LEGO and Horizon are. Just because you slap the LEGO logo on something and make a LEGO game out of something doesn't guarantee its success, despite how big the LEGO brand is. It worked with Star Wars because, one, it's Star Wars, and two, they made a fairly substantial game. LEGO Horizon Adventures, this is a game that comes up to $60. That's a full AAA game's price. And an experience that's this short and whose hours aren't, the level of substance that you'd expect from that kind of price point, All of that culminates to a game that is just not worth the asking price, combined with the fact that Lego and Horizon these are two franchises, two brands that how they go together just doesn't garner mass appeal. Horizon is just a weird choice for this particular genre of, like Lego lightheartedness, when Horizon is a fairly heavy, kind of mature experience. Something like Star Wars, while it has obviously some darker elements to it, it has darkness to the franchise. It's ultimately like it is something that kids can watch, and it feels like an adventure that can translate to a more kids-friendly experience like a Lego game. I think they were just trying to spread the Horizon IP to a broader audience, but kids just aren't interested in a franchise like Horizon because kids wouldn't play really a game like Horizon in the first place. That's just not who Horizon appeals to. And so then when you stick the Lego kind of brand on Horizon, it's not going to appeal to kids. It's the adults who really know about Horizon. And when they play Horizon, it's not particularly appealing because it's so simplified. And so there's this conflict of identity. So yeah, just on a conceptual level, I feel like Lego Horizon Adventures had its work cut out for it. They really had to prove that this pairing was worth trying. And they had like this steep uphill climb to make, but they ultimately couldn't make it by trying too much to lean more into the Lego side of things instead of like really bringing a lot of those Horizon elements and not just the basics, and not making a game that feels like a full-fledged experience. I think they've just ultimately come up with a concept that doesn't work. And that can be seen in the rather abysmal numbers that we're seeing on Steam. That is likely representative of a game that is going to lose money and is ultimately going to be deemed a flop, and is probably something that Sony won't try again in trying to marry PlayStation franchises that are really not suited for the Lego experience. But that's just one man's take. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts and opinions are on why you think Lego Horizon Adventures didn't appeal to anyone, why you think this game ultimately failed to the point where this PlayStation-published title did worse than even Concord. And to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.